the fuel subsidy removal, the development story, let's quickly take a look at the recent developments in the last 48 hours now. We're saying many petrol stations still selling above the benchmark 141 naira benchmark, selling the product for between 140 naira to as high as 200 naira in some petrol stations across the Federation. Now, the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency officials say that they're trying to normalize the situation, and today they will meet with major oil marketers to forge a way forward and, of course, to contain the situation before it gets out of hand. And we also do know that labor unions have called for several meetings among themselves and are preparing for mass strikes actions across the Federation, and, of course, demonstration. We saw some demonstrations in Abuja yesterday, and that is expected to continue in the next couple of days. Now, today we're looking on the impact on governance, and joining me is Wale Oluwo, the Chief Executive of Investment Banking at BGL Group, and we're looking at this developing story of the subsidy removal. Now, some of the highlights of the subsidy removal, especially the subsidy reinvestment fund, according to what the federal government has termed it, what these funds will be invested in. That's the funds that will be saved from the petroleum subsidy, about 1.134 trillion naira, according to the federal government. This money will be disbursed to the three arms of government, and there's actually a breakdown for what states and everybody involved will get. Now, the federal government says that it will get 478.49 billion naira. The state government will be given 411 billion naira. Local governments will be given 203 billion naira, while the federal capital territory will get about 9.8 billion naira. And the states and local governments are to design programs for use of this subsidy reinvestment funds. These are some of the palliatives, as the federal government calls it, that to, of course, to help cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy removal. Wale Oluwo is here to share his thoughts, give us his own perspective on this development story. Thank you so much for being here. Now, of course, I'm sure you have been...
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Okay, I'm sure you have been following the story since it broke out January the 1st. Give us your thoughts. First of all, let's start from the basics. Your reaction when you heard the removal on Sunday.
I was not shocked, really, because it was expected. I think officers of government have been talking about it, I guess, for the past month. The only confusion there was that they were almost preparing the general public to accept implementation for sometime in April, probably early April. And then what they did was almost like an ambush, in which case we started implementation in January. That was the only area that I would say shocked me. But otherwise, the issue of subsidy has always been a very contentious issue. I know it's also very explosive at this time, but the truth of the matter is we have a lot of the numbers. We are clear that the subsidy regime has become a huge corruption, and government probably has not been able to manage that process very well, and something must just change, something must give. That is the challenge we're having now.
Okay, so another major issue that has come out of all of this has been the issue of timing. I know it's been said that we've gone back and forth over the issue of timing. Is it ill-timed? We all do agree that it's something that had to be done. And as we did send out some of our reporters, and from feedback, many Nigerians did say that they heard the month of April that's when it will be removed, and the government did not prepare the citizens, as it were, for when it will happen. Do you think it would have made any difference from between January to April, announcing it in April and then removing it in April?
The truth of the matter is that the subsidy program had become so reckless in year 2011, and reckless to the extent that we've been doing subsidy in Nigeria for God knows how many years, and there has been no time that subsidy had exceeded about 400 billion in our history. But I guess probably people knew government was going to remove it, so the year 2011, as at October, was already 1.3 trillion. So it is not impossible that people decided to maximize that practice, so that they know there will be no tomorrow. So let's just clean out whatever. But I don't have evidence to that effect, so I don't know. But what is important is that the subsidy regime, ordinarily in economics, they use it to stimulate production, a lot of economic activities. But Nigeria being the way it is, people take their time and abuse a lot of the systems that we put in place. Fundamentally, I think the starting point is it appropriate for a country like Nigeria, as big as we are and as developed, reasonably developed as our economy is, for the PPMC, which is an agency of the NNPC, to be the one authorizing importation or substantially importing the fuel we use in Nigeria? Is it the duty of the federal government to be selling petrol to us and to be importing petrol for the entire nation? I don't believe in that personally. I think it's an aberration. In terms of timing, it's not particularly good that they are making this a New Year gift to Nigerians. But the truth of the matter, in a typical Nigerian way, we had allowed this subsidy issue to continue to linger, and it has become a big cancer, and we're having to go through a bigger pain to remove this cancer. The truth of the matter is, this subsidy should have been done away with 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It would have been much more easier to manage. The effect would have not been this fundamental on the people, and it will not look like a cancer that we are having now.
So for you, perhaps over the last 10 years or last couple of years, it should have been done perhaps gradually, or would have felt...
not necessarily gradually, you see.
Because
I'm an economist.
It seems like that's one of the biggest grasses that Nigerians have, the fact that it was just sprung on on everyone.
The gradual approach, I may be wrong, but the gradual approach based on our experience and history don't work in Nigeria. If you look at privatization, you say let's privatize gradually, and then you sell 51%, and then you privatize, you sell 51%, and government keeps 49%. That 49% is significant, and then you see the House of Reps come another day and say, no, reverse everything, re-advertise it and all that. It is a Nigerian way of, not letting things go. Now, if you talk about gradual removal of subsidy, for the past 20 years, we've been told that subsidies are being removed over time, and that is what we have come to know. Now, during Obasanjo's period, he almost removed it about 4 times, and the cycle keeps going. So for me, gradual removal is completely out of it. It will not work because people will still abuse it. What we are facing now is an issue of abuse, and fundamentally an issue of structure. The economy as we have it today, particularly the downstream sector, is structurally defective. And structurally defective because, one, you have a product that the demand for it is almost inelastic. No matter what price you bring it to the market at, people will still buy. Anyway, it's a product that has a near no close substitute. People are not going to use something else to power their cars. They are still going to buy the fuel anyway.
Well, there's diesel on that, on the other hand.
No, but is everybody going to change their cars to diesel engines overnight? Almost like 90% of all cars in Nigeria are powered by PMS. So you have a product with almost no close substitute. You have a product characterized by almost inelastic demand. And then the private sector is not falling over themselves to invest in that sector and make profit. They avoided it. Why did they avoid it? Because government entered that sector at one point in time. That exact period I can't remember, but I know it must have been in the 70s. Government entered that market, used its power as a government to begin to control the production and the distribution system in the system, and government became inefficient in the process. And as a result of that inefficiency, government set a price at which the product should sell. In a market where you have set a price, you have already created a distortion. It's either you have enough money to subsidize that price, or the market will set its own price that will clear itself. And that is what we have seen. So we are talking about deregulation now, when the market had already deregulated itself some years back. So government was slow in realizing that the market was already deregulated. And I give you instances. In the south, particularly the riverine areas and a lot of towns outside Port Harcourt, you don't see people buying fuel at 65. Even in the north, you don't see people buying fuel at 65 naira. This 65 naira is only at those major cities. Now that is deregulation by the market on its own. without waiting for government. But the problem now is that when the federal allocation comes, subsidy is a first line charge, in which case all the states are bearing the cost of this so-called subsidy, whereas in their localities they are buying fuel at more than the 65 naira subsidized price. So you can see there's a lot of inconsistency in the chain, but you cannot begin to solve a problem without knowing what the cause of that problem is. We are just talking about the effect. The cause of this problem is that government came in, created the problem, caused distortion, monopolized the production and importation arm of the economy in the downstream sector, and then set a price at which people will sell their products. Private sector people who are interested in selling, who have stations, you set a price for them, and then you are not paying them the difference in that price. That is a complete distortion, and that is why we are having this problem. So if we agree that it is the entry of government into most of the sectors of the economy that created distortions in all the sectors and made them inefficient, make them extremely corrupt, and made them very cost ineffective, then the solution must be to begin to take government out of those sectors, and then the system can be self-equilibrating itself. And we have seen that in so many sectors. We have seen it in the aviation sector, we have seen it in the telecommunication sector, and we have seen it in a lot of these sectors that we had pulled out government, and then the market had taken it from there, and the prices that went up actually came down. That is my position with regards to this. But the transition of this from the government-dominated sector to the private sector participation is going to be very challenging for the Nigerian masses.
In the short to medium
term. Let us not begin to talk about palliatives.